Welcome, everyone. It is me, JT Energy, the unsolved mystery, and you are listening to Drinking at Moe's. So let's drink it in, man.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Drinkin' at Moe's. Your host, of course, Big Mo. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications because you're not going to want to miss all the content I got coming up, especially with Warrior Wrestling that I'm pumped about. But today, I got with me, I've been pretty excited about this one. He's faced off against some people that are pretty close friends of mine. JT Energy, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's been a hot second since I've been on a podcast, so I'm excited to have an interview and kind of update people on what's going on with me in my life.
Oh, yeah. Like I mentioned, you faced off against some of my pretty good friends, Donnie Pepper, Cricket, or Brandon Juarez, whatever you want to call him by. We'll actually go into this because it was on my notes here. You were actually one of the opponents for what was supposed to be one of my friend's retirement matches.
Mm-hmm.
Bogat?
Yeah.
Yep, I was invited to that one, but at the time I worked a job where I only had every other weekend off, and that just happened to be on a weekend that I was working.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, first thing that I like to start off with is what got you started as a fan, and then what made you decide to make the leap into pursuing wrestling?
When it comes to me being a fan of professional wrestling, I definitely think I fell in love with it as a little kid. When I was growing up, seeing Coliseum video VHS, the video store when I would go there.
Oh, yeah.
Renting those, watching those old WrestleManias, Royal Rumbles, Survivor Series. That's the kind of stuff that got me hooked, watching that stuff. I would say the VHS tapes, and then finally when we got Monday Night Raw and things of that nature, I think that's what really got me hooked, is when I started to watch it that way, because things were taken off at the time when it came to how they were marketing stuff.
Yeah.
I always like the video games at that time, like the NES video game. They weren't anything amazing or something to make you fall in love with. But I think those VHS tapes were really what did it for me. And when we started to transition from the early 90s into the mid 90s, and you got the new generation, you had the new superstars kind of evolving, and then you got the toys coming out and all these other things. That's when it really sucked me in, because that's when wrestling was kind of everywhere. And once I found a couple kids at school that were also into wrestling, then I had other people to talk with it about and watch it and play wrestling or whatever we wanted to do. So my fandom definitely started at a young age when I was in elementary school. But when it comes to how I jumped into it, wanting to become a professional wrestler, so I'd always said for a long time, for a lot of people, that, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said a professional wrestler. But for the longest time period before social media took off or the internet took off, I had no idea how to become a professional wrestler. I remember at one point when WCW started to talk about like the WCW power plant on Nitro and and joining things of that nature. Like that was the first time I feel like I ever heard about how to become a professional wrestler. But not being someone who's overly big or anything of that nature, I never saw myself as a larger than life person, and nor did anyone that I knew think like, oh yeah, this kid is built to be a professional wrestler. So it wasn't like I had this giant backing system that was pushing me to the moon with my crazy dream that I had. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s that my life was changing right in front of my eyes. And that's when, things like Facebook had gotten big, podcasts had gotten big, and I had heard different things and seen different things about all these different schools where you could go, how you could apply. And when I made the change in my life to move from Ames, Iowa to the Quad Cities, I was moving to the Quad Cities specifically to go to the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. That's the place that kind of hit home, because I realized that one of the top superstars in WWE at the time, Seth Rollins, he was a handful of hours away from me and was running his own wrestling school. And I thought, what better time in my life than right now to just take a chance, even if I moved down here for 1 or 2 years, just to like give it a shot. At least I could say, hey, I did it. I tried it. So, but that's the start of the story. And obviously that story hasn't ended yet. So here we are now doing podcasts, being a pro wrestler, the best that I can be, or the best that I want to be to my abilities right now.
Yeah, no, and you're doing a good job of it. What would you say the training was like there at the Black and Brave Academy? Because I actually just, when was it? Like a week or two ago, interviewed for the show Merrick Brave. So what was it like?
So I knew going into, I tried to do as much research as possible when I was moving down here. I figure if I'm going to go in once, I'm going to go in with the best shot possible. And I knew I did the research that as part of the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, it was associated with the gym called at the time Quad City CrossFit. And part of the training for the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy was that you would attend X amount of CrossFit classes a week, as well as your pro wrestling training. So when I moved down here, the first thing I did was seek out that gym and get in contact with the owner and say, I'm going to be joining the Professional Wrestling Academy that's associated with your gym in January. I would like to start at the gym in October to get a jump start on this. I want to know what CrossFit is before I have to get thrown into CrossFit.
Yeah.
So I was, the type of person that was going to a Planet Fitness or an Anytime Fitness, whenever I could. I was just doing stuff. I would run a mile, lift weights, do machines, no rhyme or reason to whatever. And CrossFit is a very structured type of fitness. You show up and you have 1 hour of work that you do. It's not a full hour. You're not working from the second that you walk in there, but you have a game plan and you have a coach that's going to coach you through that. So that way, you know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, how long to do it. Okay. And so I jumped into that. And before I knew it, I was kind of familiarizing myself with the different aspects of what CrossFit was. So once January came around and we had our first night, and that's where they do the conditioning test to like make or break you essentially. Because usually you got 12 or 14 people that have signed up who want to be a professional wrestler. But the first thing that we want to do is weed out the people that did not take it seriously. And usually it comes down to your physical fitness and whether you can withstand that first night. Because if you can get through the first night, that's usually the hell that your body's not ready for. And then that first week's usually pretty rough when it comes to the training of learning what to do and how to do inside that ring to familiarize your body with it, because it's not used to it. And so I came into it in what I thought was pretty decent shape. So with the cardio and the strength, I was putting myself through pain 4 days a week with CrossFit. So when I got there, I knew it was going to be hell, but I was already trying to put myself through hell day in and day out. So that way it couldn't have been that much worse. I would probably be really sore from learning to become a professional wrestler, but I wasn't going to let the fitness aspect of professional wrestling take me out. And that's where a lot of people quit, because they show up and the first couple of things they've never done in their life, and they don't know what to do with their body. Their body wants to make them quit. And that's when you have to ask yourself, are you mentally tough enough to keep going when people are telling you that you're weak and you didn't train for this, and we're one of the best training schools in the world, and you didn't show up ready to do this. And that's usually the toughest part, because a lot of people, they show up and they think it's all right, here we go, pro wrestling time. And pro wrestling is a job. That's why it's called professional wrestling, because it's a business. People make their livelihoods off of this. And going to that gym and watching the classes before me, I was kind of like sizing up what's happening, how's it going, and watching Colby or Seth Rollins there, just seeing how things happen. I was trying to familiarize myself and make myself smart enough that when it came for my 12 weeks to start, that I at least had a leg up on maybe what other people didn't do, because some people move down, the night before, and then they get thrown into it and they're not ready for it. So I was trying to like cheat the system, or like be as smart as I could with what I could.
Well, that's not, what was Merrick Brave like during the training phases of things? Because I know you worked with him there, but you've also worked with him like actually in matches on shows.
Merrick's great. He's probably one of the most hands-on coaches, because there's 3 main coaches at the Blackberry Wrestling Academy. You have Colby, you have Merrick, and you have Crotch. So you got Seth Rollins, Merrick Brave, and Crotch. And those are your 3 guys who are going to train you and teach you the ins and outs of professional wrestling. Obviously, Seth is going to be there as much as he possibly can, which is usually a handful of days of the week. But because of his WWE travel schedule, it kind of fluctuates. Yeah. So you'll see him a couple days, but you're not going to see him the full week. But you'll see Merrick and Crotch every single day. So they're the 2 that are going to walk you through the 12-step program as far as like being as hands-on as possible. And I mean, realistically, for the first, I don't know, let's say 8 weeks, you're just learning moves and how to do things, and you can get feedback from Seth. But like the part where you really want to utilize what he is good at is really the last couple weeks, where you start to learn match psychology and also trying to figure out who you are, your promo skills, things of that nature. Because I mean, you would never want to go to like one of the best artists in the world and say, teach me how to draw. You want to, like, if I was an accomplished person who is 10 to 15 years into something and then went to someone who was, a Hall of Famer, they could show me something. They could educate me on a different way to make my style something that could work in a different light. And that's where Seth really comes into play, because I've been, doing this for X amount of years, and maybe once, twice a year, I'll have a match where I would like his feedback on it. But I don't want to have, X amount of matches a year and ask him about every single one, because I'm not utilizing him to my full capacity. Whereas like with Merrick and Crotch, those guys are there all the time, especially at like SCW Pro. So that's where I wrestle the most frequently. So those are the people that I have the most contact with. I've learned anything and everything with the fundamentals of professional wrestling from those guys. So that's where I try to listen to them, bounce my ideas off them. I try probably more new stuff at SCW Pro than anywhere else. And being as hands-on with Merrick as possible, and now working him, which I never thought I would do. He's kind of one of those guys where his style is, he was trained a certain way by Danny Daniels. He passed that on to us, and I've taken what I want to from that and started to make my own style of professional wrestling. But I can tell you, even when I wrestled Merrick, my style and his style are 2 very different styles. You can tell that he's a veteran who's worked for, I don't know, it's like 10 or 13 years, something like that. And I've been in it for 6 years. So it's fun to work with experienced people like that, because when you get a chance to collaborate with people on different ideas, it's really cool. And anytime I can get a compliment from any of my coaches about an idea I had or how I did something, that's kind of my highest praise, because I get really excited to show them the way that I think about things, trying to be outside the box, or how we are going to maximize the efficiency of a professional wrestling match, or the fans coming back, stuff like that. So Merrick's great. He's definitely not a pushover. I'll tell you that. When it comes to training, he doesn't want people to half-ass it. He wants to put out great professional wrestlers into this world, because the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy has its name tied to you if you graduate from there. And they've put out, 20 plus classes at this point of professional wrestlers. I mean, we have people all across the United States, all across the world for that matter, including, I guess if you want to determine success based on who you see at the highest level, we've got Nathan Frazier, or formerly known as Benjamin Carter, on NXT 2.0 right now. Black and Brave graduate 2 years ago, right when, the pandemic was starting, ending, doing all this weird stuff. I mean, he was at our shows, and then before you know it, he signed to NXT UK. Now he's been called up to NXT 2.0. And before you know it, he's getting vignettes and packages, and now he's on TV. So professional wrestling is whatever you want to make it. And we're all going to have different journeys in it, because you're going to define your own amount of success. And I like to watch someone like him attain that level, because no matter where I end up in all this, I think I've done pretty well for myself. And at the end of the day, I really think I have my coaches, Crotch and Merrick Brave and Seth Rollins, to thank for that, because that's where I started. Those are the guys that instilled everything to at least get this journey started for me.
Yeah, no, and you've been doing big things. I know Merrick Brave and I, we talked a lot about the whole training process, and he jokingly, well, I took it jokingly, he wanted me to ask you how his boot tasted.
Because he kicked me with that his version of Sweet Chin Music. And he recently defeated me for the SCW Pro Iowa Championship, championship that I had won twice. I was on my second reign as champion. And I would say, I mean, we're in May. And I think when we get through the second half of this year, the match that him and I had, regardless of whether I got pinned or not, I think there's a lot of people that are going to look back at our match and say that was the SCW Pro match of the year. And that's something that when I walked back to the locker room, Merrick Brave beat the ever living hell out of me. And I tried to do my damnedest to ruin his debut, or his re-debut, from coming out of retirement. And there's a lot of people that left that night, or that just came up to me, fellow coworkers, fans, anybody, and just like shook my hand saying that was special. That was something different. So it sucks the way my body looked after Merrick Brave got his hands on me. But I did some pretty derogatory stuff to probably get that beating that was brought to me. But that's all part of the business. If I look back at all the wild stuff that's ever happened in professional wrestling, I think maybe let's look back at when Mick Foley got thrown off that Hell in a Cell, and his body was beat to shit. And the first thing he did was climb to the top of the cell and get thrown through again, and have one of his incisors coming through his upper lip. And when we look back at that, you think to yourself, that man put himself through an undescribable, stupid amount of pain that in this day and age would never fly. Someone wouldn't be able to continue a match if they had gone through the things that he did. But it lives in legend. It lives in lore now because of the pain and perseverance that the Undertaker and Mankind put themselves through that night. And I like to think that I got my ass handed to me, and it's going to be one of those matches in SCW Pro history that people look back and they talk about year after year, that JT Energy and Merrick Brave was something special, and people will seek that out. And that'll be one of those highlight video packages about the match that Merrick Brave returned and slayed JT Energy, the leader of the Miss Night Society. So, I mean, it sucked, but that's what pro wrestling is. It's storytelling with your body.
That it is. And, everybody that, gets into the business, they all, I know from everybody I've talked to, you always hope to have at least one of those types of moments. And from everything I've seen and heard from you, it definitely sounds like you got at least one of them with that one.
I strive for those moments. I think from the moment I got thrust into professional wrestling, when I was part of the tag team Vicious and Delicious alongside Jossie, within 1 year of being a professional wrestler, myself and Jossie faced Sage Kana and Dante Leon in a tag team. It was a ladder match in Iowa City. And 1 year in, we had the match of the year. We were all, realistically at that time considered rookies, because we went out there and we did stuff that was insane. We tried to be the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian. We tried to steal that show. And we did. And that kind of, once you attain that even so fast, it puts that itch inside you to know what you're capable of. And so when I branched off into kind of like my singles run, just as JT Energy, whether it was SCW Pro, 3XW Wrestling, CEW, Central Empire Wrestling, anywhere I went, when I showed up, regardless of who my opponent was, I wasn't trying to think, okay, what am I doing to make someone gasp tonight? I'm trying to think, what story are we telling to make someone gasp tonight? And I think I've done a pretty good job all across the board when it comes to different places. Like you said, you brought up Donnie Pepper Cricket earlier. One of my favorite things me and Donnie have ever done is when Central Empire Wrestling did Ragbri Days. We were in, I think the name of the town is Keota, small Iowa town. Ragbri was passing through there. And that was like this insane thing. All the people on the card had multiple matches that day because there was people coming in and out of the town the whole day. And we had an impromptu tables match, myself and Donnie. And one of Austin Bayless's favorite pictures to share is this giant picture of like this. He went high up top on a building, and you see these thousands of people in this town. And it's me and Donnie swinging big haymakers at each other in this town. And at the end of that match, he put me through a table. And that was the first table, I think, as far as the singles match, that might have been the first table I'd ever gone through. It might have been just the first table I'd ever gone through in the first place. And I can remember getting powerbombed through that table. And when, again, I went to the back, they were like, that was awesome. That was something really cool, because there's these thousands of people that aren't there for professional wrestling. They're there for Ragbri. They like to go from town to town, drink, have fun, get pictures with the wrestlers. We brought people into the ring. But when I see that picture, I realized that me and Donnie did something really special that day. And I've still run into people that have said, hey, I remember you from Central Empire Wrestling. I was at that Ragbri event. And they've come to different other things. And I'm just kind of always like floored, like, oh, you came to that? That was awesome. And we did something really special. So anytime I get to be involved in a match, that I'm not involved in a match, I'm involved in a story, even if it's a one night story. I got to figure out from start to finish why I'm doing what I'm doing and why it's important to the character of JT Energy and that promotion and the person that I'm facing. So that's always how I try to think of things, because the type of professional wrestling that I like is always storyline based. I love high spot matches. Don't get me wrong. I mean, my favorite wrestler of all time is Jeff Hardy. And we know Jeff loves to do crazy things. But when I got into professional wrestling, I thought I wanted to be like Jeff Hardy. My body did not agree with that. So I chose very wisely to become something of a character, something that is an extension of who I am as a person. And that's the fun of my pro wrestling journey, is the thing that I'm doing. It's wild and outlandish, but I think some of everyone's favorite characters or personas throughout wrestling history have been very wild and outlandish, because it just works, because it's that larger than life personality brought to life.
Yep. I mean, if you go way back to people like Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, and then you go into, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, The Rock, all these guys that, a little bit over the top, but like, you see the way the crowds react to those guys. And, I know for me growing up, I'm like, damn, I love that shit.
Yeah.
But you were bringing up Central Empire Wrestling. I know I brought it up a little bit ago. What was supposed to be Bogart's retirement match, which we know since he's come back. Yeah. But what was that night like? Because, like I said, I was invited, but work stuff, I wasn't able to go.
Well, I think being a pro wrestling fan and learning about pro wrestling and then becoming a pro wrestler, I think you kind of realize that someone's retirement is always a very big part of a story, because usually that's the bookend of the story.
Yeah.
And before I got to wrestle Bo in his retirement match, I got to be a part of a retirement match in SCW as well. And being able to have someone's last match and pin them and have that person, usually it's a ceremonial passing of the torch, because usually if you're ending your career, you have to be using your career to elevate the career of the next generation, to keep that place that you've been wrestling alive. And the gentleman I helped retire in SCW was Bobby Dahl, and he was part of a tag team. And when he lost his match, he helped Vicious and Delicious rise to the next level, which we needed. And that's kind of the very humbling part of going up the ladder of professional wrestling, if someone chooses you as their last opponent. And when I came to Central Empire Wrestling, my first opponent was Tony Storm, who I just got onto a CEW card, but his opponent had pulled out. And so I made my debut against Tony Storm, because I just commented on a Facebook Live saying, hey, JT Energy would love to come to Central Empire Wrestling. And Austin Bayless reached out to me and said, yes, come on down. We'd love to have you. And that's the story of JT Energy and Central Empire Wrestling. Just a Facebook Live comment saying, hey, I'd love to work for your promotion. And once I got there, my second person that I got to wrestle and start to have a little bit of fun with, if I'm not mistaken, was Bo. And at that time in his life, he was winding down on the side of professional wrestling to focus on different aspects of his life. But JT Energy was a new star in Central Empire Wrestling who, out of nowhere, was on the rise. And what better way to use someone who is a local favorite, who's been around for a long time and can build that next star. And that's what he was for me. So being able to be in there with a veteran of Central Empire Wrestling, that's what makes it so easy. I came in there as a bad guy and people hated me instantly because I was facing one of the people that they'd loved for years. Yeah. And that's always a great way to signify bringing in someone, is if you put them with someone who's kind of a mainstay, instead of having just two young wrestlers wrestle each other that nobody knows. Because if someone in there is solidified, if I have a really good match with him and he beats me, Well, that still shows that you hung with someone who's a veteran. And when you have a return match, that's when I started to form a tag team in Central Empire Wrestling. And that's when I got sneaky. I used the numbers advantage. And then before you know it, I got the victory over Bogat, and he got his moment in the sun with his brothers in Central Empire Wrestling to, have like a final toast off. But he kind of stepped away, just like many wrestlers do, for a handful of years. That itch came back because his life changed. And when his life changed, he realized one of the things that he missed most was professional wrestling. So he made sure that his body could do it. And now he's doing it again. He's doing stuff that you're not going to catch me doing all that often, because that's not my style or what I like to wake up on a Sunday morning feeling. But I have not crossed paths with him in the ring since he has come back. But who knows? He's a great wrestler, and seeing him come back and have a return match with JT Energy would be very cool.
That it would. I know after that match, me and another mutual friend, we kind of gave him a little shit, because we were like, so what? You're not coming back to Omaha? You're not going to have a send-off in Omaha? Because, I mean, we want to get out to a Central Empire Wrestling show, and we're hoping soon we can make it work. But now we look back on it and it's like, oh, well, even if it don't last too much longer, I mean, hey, we're getting that send off.
Yeah.
But another thing with Central Empire Wrestling, they have what's become a yearly tradition with their Bridge City Slam, and their new one is coming up here, I believe, June 4th.
June 4th. That's right.
Yep. And, you are going to be in a pretty big match on that. They got a lot of great talent coming in, but you have Trevor Murdoch, and then whoever wins that, I believe, gets to face Matt Cardona. Yes,
you're 100% correct. And it's funny how, like, every year I feel like I do an interview, and at some point we have a big event, and I always come into this event or this interview and I keep saying to myself, I'm about to have the biggest match of my life. And in some way, shape, or form, I thought about this. It's very weird, because every year you're like, it's the biggest match of my life. And you tell all your friends and family, it's the biggest match of my life. I don't know when it's going to get bigger. And then the next year comes around, and if you stay on the right trajectory, you look at people again and you go, hey, I'm about to have the biggest match of my life again. And it's almost like I have this running lie now where I keep telling people, like, no, I don't know if you saw what I'm going to do, but like this match is crazy. And I have coined myself personally, with my track record at Bridge City Slam. I am Mr. Bridge City Slam. Just like Shawn Michaels was Mr. WrestleMania, I am Mr. Bridge City Slam. Because when I look at my Bridge City Slam history, the first Bridge City Slam, I won the tag team championships with my partner at the time. I defeated Donnie Pepper Cricket and D&T Dynasty, Tim Rhodes. Yeah, the D&T Dynasty fell to the Young Bucks in that match, and that was a tag team championship victory. Boom. Bridge City Slam 1, victory. Bridge City Slam 2, as you might remember, it was myself facing off with WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler. A match that in my life I never thought was a possibility ever, because Jerry the King Lawler wasn't necessarily an active wrestler on the independent circuit. And then when I realized that was who I was going to face, I was mind blown. I could have cared less what age Jerry Lawler was, because a lot of wrestlers, even when they start to progress into the later part of their lives, that doesn't take away from who they are or the tricks they've learned over the years to be in the ring. But in that match, Jerry, he took his mind off of me for a second, and that cost him because I rolled him up and I beat him 1, 2, 3 clean in that match. He thought he beat me by delivering a pile driver, but little did he know I put my foot on the ropes, and then he went to think that he won and get what he deserved. And then he lost. He lost to me. And then we roll. That's 2 victories. We roll into Bridge City Slam 3. And when, again, I sit back and I go, one of the biggest matches of my career because I just keep going up and up. Mm-hmm. One of the highlights of my career in general was being on Monday Night Raw, facing a very big, angry man by the name of Eric Rowan, who beat the living hell out of me in front of a nationwide audience. Embarrassed me, you might say. And little did we know that at Bridge City Slam 3, the world would change enough where Eric Redbeard would come to Central Empire Wrestling to face me as the Central Empire Wrestling heavyweight champion in the main event. And I, again, being the smart one, utilized my then girlfriend, now fiance, to distract him. And that man then jumped off the top rope, missed me, and then I rolled him up and defeated him 1, 2, 3. Clean in the ring. I have defeated the D&T Dynasty, Hall of Famers in Central Empire Wrestling for sure. I've defeated Jerry the King Lawler. I've defeated Eric Redbeard. And now we're going to roll into Bridge City Slam 4. Mr. Bridge City Slam is going to step into the ring with Trevor Murdoch, a man that I am 0-1 against. I have faced him 1 time, and he defeated me clean right in the middle of the ring. I am a different wrestler, and so is he since the last time that we stepped into that ring. Since that time, he has become and lost the National Wrestling Alliance Heavyweight Championship. He held the 10 pounds of gold, the NWA Championship, and he lost it to Matt Cardona. So a very determined Trevor Murdoch is coming to Bridge City Slam because the one thing that he wants to do is get his hands on Matt Cardona, the man that ended his 10 pounds of gold streak. He was doing it for Harley Race, the man that helped train him. And when that got taken away, Trevor Murdoch has changed. He is a different person, and he is on a warpath to get back to the main event status of NWA. But I'm in the way, and that probably doesn't sit too well with him. But I could care less because the things that I have had in front of me and the pain that I have gone through, I understand he's a determined man. But guess what? So my goddamn it. And I, at the top of Bridge City Slam, am going to step into that event and do anything in my power to defeat Trevor Murdoch, because the hottest wrestler on the independent scene, wherever you look, I could care less who you think it is. It's Matt Cardona. 100%. Yeah. The man's got 6 titles on his shoulders right now, with the biggest one being the National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA Heavyweight Championship, the 10 pounds of gold. That man is at the top of his game, and he's about to walk into my game at Central Empire Wrestling Bridge City Slam 4. And once I beat Trevor Murdoch by hell or high water, I get what I want. I get a one-on-one match with Matt Cardona. I get to prove to the world that everything that I say I am, I walk the walk and I talk the talk. So that's my hope. June 4th, at the end of the night, JT Energy stands tall, beating 2 former and current NWA champions in one night. And if the NWA, if AEW, if WWE does not think that I'm whatever and I'm just some little podunk guy in Iowa, that is fine. I understand that I'm not this big fish that is out there making millions of dollars. But in my career and in my eyes, that is, again, the most important night of my career. Because every year, I just keep putting the pedestal higher and higher and higher and higher, especially at Central Empire Wrestling. Austin Bayless is putting me in opportunities to prove myself to the world. Because at the end of the day, whether I'm main eventing WrestleMania or whether I'm main eventing Bridge City Slam 4, it's the same to me. I walk in that building and I own that. And especially Central Empire Wrestling, where I have made my name. If I'm going to walk around calling myself Mr. Bridge City Slam, the Central Empire Wrestling heavyweight champion, half of the tag team champions, and what I consider a future Hall of Famer, whether I like it or not, the accomplishments that I've done, I'm setting myself up. I'm not going into having a pro wrestling career to just have a little bit of fun. I'm walking into this place to help solidify my legacy as one of the greatest professional wrestlers that has ever touched the Iowa independent scene. I came from Seth Rollins' school, and I'll be damned if people don't talk about me in Iowa the way that fans talk about Seth Rollins across the world.
Oh, yeah. No, and you know what? Now that, I mean, you brought up beating them both in the same night, you know, when you think about it, when you know what, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say when that happens, that can almost be like your Jericho moment with The Rock and Stone Cold.
Absolutely. I mean, you never thought that Chris Jericho was going to become the first undisputed champion. And he did it. And then for the rest of his career, he had the picture holding both championships saying, I defeated The Rock and Stone Cold, the pinnacles of this business, in one night. And I became the first undisputed champion. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to jump at something and you're going to try to attain a level of excellence, the hardest part is not attaining it. It's when you attain it, it's keeping it. It's staying there, because Jericho won. He had this amazing moment. But the problem was when he started to progress through that title reign, when you get to an event, I think it's WrestleMania 18, you don't necessarily remember the main event of Chris Jericho versus Triple H, when Triple H came back from this massive quad injury and he won the Royal Rumble. And it's supposed to be this culmination, because even if you defeat those big bad guys at the top of that mountain, no, WrestleMania 18, you sit there and you go, I remember The Rock and Hogan, because they shook the building in Toronto. People didn't realize what they were going to get and see. And that moment overshadowed everything, whether it was the main event or not. And I would almost say that last year at Bridge City Slam, when we had Storm Thomas square off with JTG, they stole the show. That was, well, a lot of people walked away from that event going, that was the match of the night. And I may have had an amazing match with Eric Redbeard in the main event. There's a lot of people that they were talking about that match, and you know, to say that rubbed me wrong, I'd be lying, because I always want to go out there. I want to have that moment, have those things that steal the show, that leave people talking. And if I walk into Bridge City Slam 4 and I defeat Trevor Murdoch clean, actually, I could care less. I don't care how I beat him. It doesn't have to be clean, because as long a win's a win. And then I get to square off with Matt Cardona. It will be, again, that next step, that next culmination in the chapter of JT Energy, because Matt Cardona and Trevor Murdoch are well respected. And when you fight people and have these matches in professional wrestling, I'm also trying to make sure that at the end of that match, the person that looks me in the eyes afterwards, I'm trying to win their respect. I'm trying to prove to them that I am a professional wrestler. I am here to do exactly what you're doing. And we're working together to make money, to get these crowds to come back. And I want my name on their mind. If someone comes up to them at NWA and goes, who do you think would be a great addition to this roster? I want both of them to say JT Energy. And I would like someone like Billy Corgan to say, why are you important to NWA? What do you bring to NWA that we don't have right now? And that's my biggest thing, is I always want to jump into a picture and create something unique, different, just like someone who works for NWA or did work for NWA and now works for Impact Wrestling, Zicky Dice. Insanely different character who went to NWA, won the television championship, left NWA, and now he's working for Impact Wrestling. Again, a Black and Brave Wrestling Academy graduate, something extremely different. And he knows that he brings something different to that picture of professional wrestling. And that's what I want to be to someone. I want to show them why I am something that they are missing. One of my biggest things that you can look at right now, if you look at AEW television, we just were blessed with the addition of Danhausen, someone who is 100% different than anything in professional wrestling. And you have someone like Hook, who is very different than anything in professional wrestling. You have these come together, and you have this buzz, and you have this talking points of this formidable tag team, or what's going to happen with Hookhausen. And I want to strive to be something of that nature. I want to be that different thing that maybe I'm not the main event, but I'm always a talking point when you come to a show that I'm involved with. I'm the thing that when you leave and you get in the car and you start driving down the road, I'm the thing you talk about, whether I was the main event or not. I always try to make sure that JT Energy is the thing that you think about, you talk about, you look up, because I want to be on your mind with what I did, how I did it, what, the next thing I'm doing. That's what my drive in professional wrestling is.
Oh yeah, no, that's gotta be your drive for anybody, because, especially now with all the choices that are out there, you got to find that thing that makes you different. You got to find that thing that's like, you know what? I want to be there. They don't have something like this. I'm going to be that. And you know what? When it comes down to Bridge City Slam 4 and you get both of those wins, it would be hard for me to see that people at NWA not taking notice of that.
Whether they take notice of it or not, there will always be local legends when it comes to independent professional wrestling. And I think Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, Minnesota, we all have legends of independent professional wrestling. And you watch those people bring up the professional wrestling scene. And that's what I'm slowly trying to do myself, because someday I want to be that placeholder. Just like when I look at, in my head, if I look at Nebraska, for instance, I usually almost always think of Magnum Pro. And when I think of Magnum Pro, I think of the measuring stick, which is Jason Strife. And I've only wrestled Jason Strife one time at 3XW Wrestling, and that was essentially right when he came back from one of his medical circumstances. So we didn't even get to go balls to the wall at Jason Strife, which I know Jason Strife loves to do. So someday in the future, that's a return match that I'd love to have, because I know what he's capable of, and that's bringing the best out of you, just like an independent wrestler like Merrick Brave would, or someone in Minnesota like Darren Corbin or Eric Cannon would, or if you look at Missouri or Kansas City, someone you're stepping into the ring with like a Jeremy Wyatt. These people are all independent professional wrestlers that have worked their asses off to be called the best. And when you get to step to the best, you're either going to walk away showing why you weren't even on their level, or you're going to step up your game to show them that you can elevate your game to be on that level, and hopefully show them that you have something someday that you can help build that professional wrestling scene, just like they have, whether they're on WWE, AEW, any of the TVs or not. It doesn't matter. When you watch them locally and independently, you realize you're seeing something special every single time you get to watch them wrestle.
Oh yeah. No, and you brought up Jason Strife. I know when he's 100%, that there's not a whole lot of people out there that can go like he does.
Yeah. And he, someone like him, he'll always be one of those people that people will be like, damn, he should have been signed. He had the tools, and we don't know why he never, attained what he was capable of. And I can remember being, when I did extra work, and I think it was Omaha, for it was either a Raw or a SmackDown. I know he worked I want to say it was a 205 live match with Akira Tozawa, and yes. being able to watch him do that, someone who he had faced many years earlier on the independent scene, and then watch him have that rematch on 205 live. I mean, it's awesome to see when those things happen, because it's well deserved. Whether it's on WWE, TV, AEW, you should always be pushing yourself to find your break, but be happy for those other people when they get their break and they have the opportunity to show them what they got. And even if they don't get that job, it's fine, because they learn something to bring back, that when you get a chance to wrestle them next, you should learn that same thing as well. And if you don't learn it, it's your own fault.
No, that very, very good way of putting it. Before I get on to my next topic, Akira Tozawa, I actually met him when I was stationed in San Diego, the promotion that got me started with independent professional wrestling. He was in there for a show, and I got to see him there, and then I see him on WWE TV, and I'm like, dude, I met him.
Yeah.
Dude. But yeah, like I said, my next topic I was going to bring up, I know I've seen one or two of your Facebook lives with the WWE card pack opens.
Yeah. The card breaks.
The card breaks, yeah. I thought I saw some stuff in the background. One video, you do a lot of collecting. I know with the cards, for a while I was heavily into the sports cards anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up like a lot of other people did with the boom of trading cards, whether it be baseball, football, Marvel cards, DC cards, WWE cards, and I don't know. At a certain point in my life, I definitely just stopped. I also think that the cards, they stopped booming. And once they stopped booming, you just kind of lost interest. I didn't necessarily lose interest in those things that were surrounding them, but that was my favorite part, was being invested into the people that I was collecting, whether they be sports players, the different Marvel cards, the wrestling cards. My favorite part of opening a pack of trading cards is it's like a lottery ticket, but it's usually a lottery ticket of something that you love, and you don't know what you're going to get. And you never think the odds are in your favor to find the biggest thing that you could, right? But it's exciting because there's a possibility. I can even remember, this doesn't happen anymore, but one of my favorite things that I used to do when I was younger is when Gatorade would run promotions and you would twist off the caps and you would look underneath and you would try to win something. And I can remember I have a autographed Sammy Sosa baseball from during the time period where we had the home run race to break Roger Maris's record. I have an autographed Sammy Sosa baseball just chilling at my parents' house, and I won that from Gatorade, and I thought that was so cool because I won something. And those things are exciting because they don't happen that often. So that's always the thrill. It's the chase. What am I going to get? When you open up a pack of cards now, you're hoping to get one of one or an autograph or something cool, something different. And with these card breaks, I mean, cards hit a boom during the pandemic because everybody was sitting around and they're like, what do I do? And then you realize, oh, what do I do with all my collectibles? I've never had this downtime until now. And then all of a sudden, boom, everyone wanted to figure out, what do I do with all my things that I've held on to for years and years and years? And trading cards blew up. And I didn't think anything of it for a long time. I watched it from afar and I thought it was cool, but I wasn't like all in. And I don't know if I'm necessarily all in right now, but I'm excited. I'm intrigued about it.
Yeah.
And when you go to places like Walmart or Target, you can just pick up these blaster boxes for like $20 and you can just open them up online. And I just said, screw it, I'll try it. And when I told people, hey, you can buy a card pack and then I'll just give them to you at the show. Or if you buy a couple, I'll ship them to you, whatever. And then when I realized I started opening these and people were excited and they actually wanted to like watch me and listen to me talk about whatever while I was doing stuff. It's the same idea, I guess, as when people on Twitch like blew up and all they're doing is they're playing video games, but they're talking or they're watching movies or they're watching wrestling matches. You just want to see people that you like do something and see them excited or talk about things. And I could do all kinds of stuff, but right now I'm just dipping into trading cards because it's fun. It's an easy thing to like digest once a week. I'm not going over the top. I know the brand new WWE Prism cards that just came out are kind of the hot commodity on the market. And some of that stuff is insane. When the initial first debut boxes got released, those boxes were going for $1,000 a box for a hobby box. And when I saw that, I was like, $1,000 for a box of cards. But I've also seen some of the collectors that dip themselves into the MLB and the NFL, and that stuff's high dollar too. You can get high dollar things because we're talking autographed jerseys, one of one, whatevers. And I just think it's cool that some local people or people that I know from professional wrestling want to drop $5 here or $8 there, own a pack of cards, see me at a show, get the cards, watch me show what they're going to possibly win. And, it's a fun thing that I've started to like get back into for my own personal collection, but also like help other people out just to like give them a different experience with a professional wrestler, because I could be JT Energy, just a regular professional wrestler all the time. But in reality, that's kind of boring because that's all I am. But if I show you that I'm JT Energy, I do card breaks, I'm JT Energy, I collect action figures, I'm JT Energy, I DJ and I dance and all this other stuff, you're kind of like, whoa, there's so much to this person. And the more that you get involved in a person and their character and who they are, you can relate on some levels, and other levels you might not, but at least you can be entertained. And that's the big picture. If someone entertains you, you stick around. You want to see what they're going to do next, or you at least want to like keep your eye on them. You want to follow them, or tell a friend about them. And so that's why I've tried to just stay broad with the different stuff. And when it comes down to everything I'm doing now, I would say one of my major influences is Matt Cardona. Ever since the Major Wrestling Figure podcast has been started, I listen to it every single week. I am a dedicated listener, and listening to the way that Matt Cardona and Brian Myers and Mark Sterling run their business, and it is a business now because that's how they make their money. And if you can make your money off of the things that you love, man, right now I'm having fun just doing a side gig. I'm opening trading cards, I'm wrestling, I'm doing other things, and I'm making enough money out of the things I love that during the week when I work my regular job, yes, that pays the majority of my bills. But if I walk into a store and I want to buy a professional wrestler or I want to buy some trading cards, I have the money now. I don't worry about whether I do or don't have that. And that's something, when I started my journey in pro wrestling, I did not have the money to do that. I picked up many wrestling figures and looked at them and said, damn, I wish I had the money for this, but I know I don't. That's not what's important right now. But now I am a professional wrestler. I am having fun. I am enjoying that. And when you figure out what your balance is and how to have fun and enjoy those things, it's a great balance. You got to find your balance when it comes to pro wrestling. Everyone's is different, but I think I've kind of found mine, and I'm enjoying things on a weekly basis with what I'm able to give to the people that actually care about watching me for whatever reason that is.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed watching the little bits I've been able to, and I've been, well, it's kind of not one particular thing, but I've been collecting wrestler autographs, whether it be on pictures or on action figures. Like a little ways behind me, I got a signed Hangman Adam Page figure that I got at the last World of Wheels here in Omaha.
Nice.
And like, I know I bought this person had these different pro wrestler themed like comic book cover looking things.
Yeah.
And I bought a Becky Lynch one, and I met her and I had her sign that.
Nice.
But probably my personal favorite was, if you remember a while back, the Elimination Chamber, the DVD cover has Edge on it and it looks like he's biting the cage.
Yeah.
I have that signed and framed.
Yeah, nice. That's amazing.
That's probably my personal favorite one as of right now.
And that's what I get excited about, because the more people that I talk to, when you get talking, because I feel like everyone, when you talk to a pro wrestling fan, each pro wrestling fan is so different. And when you get talking to someone, a lot of us, even though we're pro wrestling fans, a lot of people don't necessarily open up about like who they are 100% until you start to figure out like what you like, how you like it, and these different things. But when you start to find out about people's personal collection, that really opens up the floodgates, because you realize what this person likes, what they collect, how long they've been watching, what they care about. Because some people like autographs, some people don't like autographs, some people like to open things, some people like to keep them mint in case. It's so fun to figure out what people like, who they like, how they like. And I think that's ultimately someday, whether I don't know when I'll have the time or the house or whatever I hopefully truly want out of it. Someone like Kyle Peterson on YouTube has this amazing toy room that he has set up, and it's just gorgeous and beautiful. And every time I watch the Major Wrestling Figure podcast and I see everything behind him, how it's set up and how nice it is, it's just like that added layer to show you that person. So if I was doing a card break tonight, and over this shoulder you saw something, and over this shoulder you saw something, it like draws you in. It might spur a conversation going, hey, I see you have this. Hey, I see you have that. And that's why I try to be so active on my social medias, is I try to show people who I am and what I collect in those areas, because I want to be open about that. I want people to feel like they know me, even if they don't know me, because wrestling is cool, but wrestling is insanely weird at the same time. But that's all of us. We're just crazy guys or crazy girls or crazy whoever or whatever you are, and you love it for all those weird different reasons. But it's the beauty of it, because we have these things where we get together collectively in groups of almost 100,000 people, and we celebrate pro wrestling.
Oh yeah. Now I have this vision of when we get my wife and I back into our house, once stuff is finished over there, I want to have like that setup where like I'll be able to have behind me all the different wrestler autographs and figures. I know I got a couple of those Funko Pops, and just have all that behind me, so like it can look similar to those guys. It's I've got some pretty cool stuff when I think about it, even some stuff outside of wrestling. I know I went to a Dierks Bentley concert when he was over in Council Bluffs here at the Stir Cove event deal they got there, and I went crazy early because it's all general admission, just thinking, oh, maybe I can get up close and maybe get a CD cover autographed.
Sure.
And there's pictures on like my Instagram and stuff where he at one point had pointed out and was like, "Where are my beer drinkers at?" And I'm just screaming, "Yeah!"
Yeah.
And then he's pointing over at my direction. I'm like looking around me thinking, there is no way he's pointing at me.
Yeah.
And then he comes over and helps the security guys get me over the barricade. And before I know it, I'm shotgunning a beer on stage with Dierks Bentley. And before the concert ends, he takes one of the extra guitars that they had played with earlier, motions for something to write with, an autograph. I got an autographed Dierks Bentley guitar in my basement.
That's amazing. See,
So
that's the beauty of it, is when we go to these things that we love, we invest our time and our money, you have no idea the power that someone has until you're there and they make your night the night of a lifetime. And that's stuff that you'll like never forget. That story will live with you so freshly in your memory until the day that you die, just knowing, hey, I went to Dierks Bentley, I got on stage, I shotgunned a beer, I got an autograph, they gave me a freaking guitar, like, and people will always be like, just by going to the show, like just a regular general admission ticket, and you're like, yep, I won the lottery that night.
The other funny part of the story, I was like hoping somebody was going to take a picture, because I was like, I didn't think anybody was going to believe me.
Sure.
And I literally go to call my family and be like, oh my God, you will not believe what happened.
Yeah.
And apparently my now sister-in-law was there with my brother, and one of her friends was there, and she was apparently had like maybe 5 minutes before had been hearing the story, like, oh my God, it was so cool. They brought this guy up on stage and they shotgunned a beer, and then
that's wild.
Then they send her a picture of it,
mm-hmm.
and she's sitting right there by my brother, and she's like, isn't that your brother?
Yeah.
And like literally 5 minutes later, I was calling and they had known about it. I'm like, no way.
How wild. How wild.
But all right. I have two different categories I like to kind of round off the show with.
All right.
One is, you might have seen it on like the Broken Skull sessions, a little bit of a speed round. I name off some people, you give me your thoughts.
Okay, I'll do my best.
First off, Matt Cardona.
Self-made superstar.
You know what? That would fit him perfectly, because I mean, even going back to his WWE days when they had kind of seemingly phased him out there for a little bit, and then he starts putting that stuff out on YouTube, and then he starts making it like, okay, you're going to pay attention to me now.
Yeah.
And it continued into today with the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, and you know, he's the NWA champ right now.
That's right.
Trevor Murdoch.
Trevor Murdoch. To me right now, Trevor Murdoch is the definition of a grizzled veteran.
You know what? It would, you'd find it hard for me to be able to argue that one, because I mean, he's been around, and you know, definitely had a lot of success, and he's still having it. He's doing great things there in the NWA. Next off, a guy you have a little history with, Eric Redbeard.
Eric Redbeard. Eric Redbeard he's the dream maker. Because if it wasn't for Eric Redbeard, I would have never stepped foot in the WWE ring and had a match on Monday Night Raw. So Eric Redbeard is the dream maker.
That fits perfectly.
Or the dream crusher, depending on whatever way you want to look at it.
Well, maybe towards the start with that first meeting, in a way it was a bit of both. You got to be in the WWE ring, but kind of went not so much in your favor. But then you got to have your little bit of a redemption there at that last Bridge City Slam where you got your win.
Yep.
Last off for the speed round, guy that was the best man at my wedding, Donnie Pepper Cricket.
Most underutilized talent in the Midwest.
I can agree. Just last night I was with them at another local promotion, PWP, and they had a prisoner of war match. It was brutal. Like tables, ladders, chairs, light tubes. And you might see pictures on Facebook. Him and Pat Powers, they got bloodied up pretty good. I remember.
Of course they did.
I'm not even kidding. Like Pat Powers, I was sitting right up front and he had just come back into the building because they're out in the street when he got hit with the light tubes. And he quickly turned around like right in front of me, and his face was so drenched in blood that it sprayed onto me.
Oh my God.
I
Crimson Mask.
I had it all over my pants, my shirt, my phone. God,
Jesus.
But yeah, no, that was something. I actually just uploaded my little, I call it documenting and shit, where I at different shows and stuff, different clips, and then I even have I've started doing little music videos,
sure,
little versions of it, but they both have that light tube shot in them.
Wow.
So it's some crazy stuff. All right, that's it for the speed round. Next off, a little bit of a randomizer. I have some random questions here. You answer how you see fit.
Okay.
Most expensive thing in your collection?
I don't know. I feel like almost everything that I own in my collection, actually, if I bought one thing that was more than I probably would ever spend on something, before I was a professional wrestler, my goal was to find a way to get a replica championship belt. And I can't remember which birthday it was for. I bought myself a big gold belt. So I've got the old world championship, the one that's kind of synonymous with Flair, or the one that Batista won at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And I got my name etched in the little nameplate. And I think that's probably the most I've spent on anything. If we're not talking like tickets or experiences, and we're just talking like actual physical items, I would say that championship that I bought, that was kind of like the day that it showed up, I was like, man, this is what an actual WWE title feels like. Because I think that was always in my head, like I need to know, because at that time I never thought I'd become a professional wrestler, but that's probably why I spent the most money on when it comes to my personal collection.
If I actually went and looked as far as value for me, it would probably either be that guitar, or I've looked up the value of the actual specific figure I got signed by Hangman Adam Page. When I think about it, it's probably one of those two things.
Yeah.
For me. Craziest thing you've done in a match?
I just took a staple gun and I stapled a dollar bill to Merrick Brave's his forehead. That's absolutely the most insane thing I've ever done. I don't know if that'll ever be topped because I'm not too much of an extreme wrestler, but using a staple gun on someone's forehead, that's probably about my pinnacle.
But that would fit. That definitely would fit. Back to collections, one thing, if you could pick one thing that you want to have in your collection.
One thing. What I've been trying to do for a while now is, I always say the moment that changed my life, that made everything clear to me that I wanted to become a professional wrestler, was the main event of WrestleMania 31. So what I would ultimately, I think, like to do is I have the Seth Rollins Elite Toys R Us exclusive Mr. Money in the Bank figure. I would like, there are figures from this time period with these looks. I would like the Roman Reigns Elite WrestleMania 31 and the Brock Lesnar WrestleMania 31 look. And I would like to have a display of Brock and Roman and Seth all within their packaging right there that I could display and put my WrestleMania 31 ticket in front of them and just kind of have that always somewhere that I can look at, knowing that that's always the moment that I'll look back at, the main event that changed my trajectory of my entire life from that day forward. So I have the Seth Rollins figure that I want, but I've kept my eyes on the Roman Reigns and the Brock Lesnar in box that I would like to purchase, because I think for that, I would like to have them in box. I'm not going to have them loose. Yeah. And with those figures, I've never pulled the trigger. They're not like insanely high dollar amounts when it comes to figures, but it's more than I want to spend right now. But when the time is right or the deal is right, I think I'll probably acquire those and I'll make my own little nice display of that main event.
That would be pretty fucking sweet. I gotta say that makes me almost want that myself. All right. Lots of people talk about bucket lists and, wrestlers having their bucket lists and, matches they'd like to have, opponents or whatever. What would you say is one thing that you haven't done in wrestling that you would have on your bucket list? Like, you know what, before I hang my boots, I want to do that.
I think of all the things I've attained so far that I wanted to do, I've had a lot of stuff and I faced a lot of people. And I don't want to call out an opponent because that's not necessarily the question. It's what I personally want to do. And at some point, I always, with how much I love professional wrestling and what I fell in love with, I would like to have, and the only place I know that does this is SCW. And that's because they run fairly often around here. And I think at their event that they run every January, which is the Prestige Rumble, which is a 20-man over the top rope battle royal, at some point, I want to win that, because that's usually the winner gets their match X amount of months later at Epic, which is essentially our WrestleMania. It's the same type of story that you could follow on WWE TV from the Royal Rumble to WrestleMania, except for SCW, it's the Prestige Rumble to Epic. And I have attained many levels of success in SCW, but I have never won the SCW Pro Heavyweight Championship. And there are people that I want to face at Central Empire Wrestling, and there are things that I want to do as the champion of Central Empire Wrestling. But my home base and where I started has always been SCW Pro. And I have slowly climbed that ladder of success. And the only thing that is not on my list is the SCW Pro Heavyweight Championship. And if I have to wait till next January to get my shot to win the Prestige Rumble, to get my shot at Epic, then so be it. Because my story, when it comes to my heavyweight championship win, I've always loved the idea of someone winning the Royal Rumble and going on to WrestleMania to win. And as cliche as it sounds, like that's what you always hope happens. JT Energy is not necessarily the best guy in the world. And you may not want him to win, but also the trajectory of my career, I don't know what the JT Energy character looks like in the future. So one of those going through like a rumble like that I'm in the ring for a significant amount of time, just dying, giving my heart. That's something that I would like to hopefully someday experience.
And you know what, with the trajectory you've had, I'm certain sooner rather than later that, you know, you've accomplished so much. I imagined it won't be too much longer until you get across that one off.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Only time will tell.
Exactly.
Well, that is about all I have for you today.
All right.
Where can people find you on social media and stuff, so you know people can follow you and, you know, maybe catch a show?
They can follow me everywhere. I got everything, almost everything. I got Facebook, I've got Twitter, I've got Instagram, I've got YouTube, I've got TikTok, I've got a pro wrestling tees store. If you're gonna search me, you don't necessarily, I mean, you can search JT Energy, but my handle, as the kids call it, is DJ, because that's what I used to be. So DJ, the word click, CLICK, the letter N, and then PLAY. DJ click and play. And that's on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. If you want to search JT Energy on YouTube, you will find my channel, which I'm always trying to grow, always trying to put new content out every single week on my YouTube. I started that during the pandemic and I have not stopped. I'm always trying to give you something in some way, shape, or form, new or old, to feast your eyes on. I'm doing card breaks on Instagram on a weekly basis because I found out that's my favorite place to do it. I'm always trying to post stuff to Twitter to keep people up to date with all the shows that I'm going to be on, whether it is SCW Pro, Central Empire Wrestling, 3XW Wrestling, Zawa Live, AAW, Magnum Pro, wherever I'll be. I try to always post it there. Facebook, you can always follow me up. I try to stay active there as well. If you want to support, always go to prowrestlingtees.com/JT Energy, where I got, I don't know, tons of t-shirt designs, all different kinds of colors to support the 6-star booty, the Michael Jordan and Misting, all kinds of different stuff. My 19 monikers that I've come up with and nicknames over time. So I have tons to choose from the different aspects of my career. But yes, I'm all over the place. Otherwise, if you want to get a hold of me on social media in some way, shape, or form, I'm usually pretty friendly. I talk right back to you. I interact with you. If you want to be a part of a card break, let me know. I would be happy to get you in on these things. Super easy. I'm not one of those wrestlers that's going to like, just act like you don't exist, because you are the fans. You are the money. You are the reason that we run professional wrestling shows. So I try to not let you overstep the boundaries, but I also want to interact with you to make sure that you feel like you are a part of the show, because that's what keeps people coming back. They like to feel like they are actively doing something with the show. So I'm everywhere. Follow me, subscribe to me, click bells, do things. That's where I'm at.
And as soon as I get this uploaded after editing, I will be sure to put all the links in the description box.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that is it for today. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and I look forward to hearing how Bridge City Slam goes.
Oh, don't worry. You will. Everyone will.